You are live.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us again this week. The live Q&A for the next hour. Any questions you have, we are just here to answer them on anything related to dating, relationships, marriage, chastity, pornography, starting over, contraception, gender, modesty, you name it. Wide open Q&A. You guys get to run the show. We've already received a handful of questions, but if you want to call in, you just simply click the link in the Discord server there at the bottom of the description of the video, and that'll pump you up, put you over to the Discord. You'll be able to ask your question live to us over the air. If you'd prefer a little bit more anonymity, you could ask your question through the Discord server anonymously, or just email it at live@chastity.com, and then we'll be able to answer your questions for the next 60 minutes live on anything you want to talk about. So, and one little business note, I just got an email today that our pilgrimage to Rome completely filled up about 2 weeks ago. So I asked them, hey, is there any way to free up any more space on the trip? And they said, we'll check with the hotels, but I don't know. I just heard today they have opened up 5 new rooms. So if you do want to come with us to Italy, we will be departing July 27th, flying to Venice. We're going to go kayaking in Venice, gonna have dinner there in Venice, spend the night, then go up to the Italian Alps and do a little hiking up there. Nothing too strenuous, but see some beautiful spots up there. Go over to Turin, Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, St. John Bosco, the Shroud of Turin. Then go over to Polone, which was Blessed Pier Giorgio's summer residence with his family, and get to see the mountain that he hiked, go up and have mass on top of the mountain. So if you're up for an arduous hike, it's about 3,000 feet of elevation gain. You can come with us to hike it. If you're like, hey, no thanks, I'm not wanting to do the hike, you can stay down with the other pilgrims and have other activities. Then we're going to take the fast train from Milan down to Rome, and we're going to hang out there in Rome, different piazzas, cathedrals, basilicas, some really good carbonara pasta at a place recommended by one of St. John Paul II Swiss Guards. So we've got an epic trip. I've looked at the roster. We've got 77 people going so far, anywhere from people that are 8, 10 years old with their families, all the way up to grandparents, lots of Catholic young adult singles coming on the trip. So if you're feeling spontaneous, just go to jp2trails.com, sign up. There is still room. There's only 5 rooms left. And so please sign up if you want to come with us. We've got about 2 buses full of pilgrims will be taken. And then in September, Crystalina and I are going again to France to do a wilderness backpacking, like kind of a monastic retreat out there to Lisieux, Mont Saint Michel, and then a monastery as well, Salem's Monastery with the monks. So looking forward to that. But I've been talking for 5 minutes. What are
No,
you
I'm
thinking?
excited. Come, it's gonna be amazing. It'll really be an amazing, not just physical journey and just getting to see the world, but also just spiritually. I think it's gonna do some amazing things in everyone that's gonna be joining us.
And you've been to Rome, what, 3 times now, and then France once or twice?
Yes,
I think, but
but
never
not
Sue.
Mont Saint Michel. I'm very excited. It's one of my bucket list things I really want to do. We get to spend the night there.
We do. Yeah, we're gonna hike.
Actually get to spend the night there. It's pretty
If
amazing.
you haven't seen Mount Saint Michel's, this amazing
Look it up.
castle palace thing, surrounded by water. But then when the tide goes out, you can hike on the bay to it through the mud and the marsh. So we're hiking barefoot through the marsh to Mount Saint Michel on the Feast of Saint Michael. So that's going to be
He's gonna
pretty
be
epic.
barefoot. I'm not gonna be.
Oh, she'll be in stilettos. I camp, she glamps. So,
We'll see.
but yeah, come with us at jp2trails.com. So Josiah, how are you doing, and what do we got for the lineup today of
Hello.
questions?
I'm doing excellent. We got some good questions lined up today.
My
It's a
condolences
great
on the Pacers, by the way.
bro. I could go on for hours about it.
I
It's
mean,
one thing to lose a championship in game 7. It's another thing 7 minutes into the game for your best player to snap his Achilles and your next season also be shot.
oh man.
Oh, that's brutal.
They got a
Yeah.
bright
Yeah.
future, man. He's something else.
We'll
Halliburton's
we'll be
awesome.
back in a couple years, but he's just, if you
Yeah.
guys want fun, here's a good one. I'll do a fun fact. Maybe this is
Okay.
the thing I'll do every week. Fun fact. The player with the most game-winning shots and game-tying shots under 2 minutes in the NBA is LeBron James, with
Okay.
8 in his entire playoffs. The player with the most in the playoffs under 2 minutes is LeBron with 8 in all of his playoff appearances
Okay.
combined.
Which are many.
Tyrese Halliburton has been in the playoffs twice and he has 5.
Ooh, clutch.
Yeah,
Clutch.
so he is statistically on efficiency maybe the most clutch player,
Oh.
So I think we'll be back. But
Yeah,
it was heartbreaking to watch.
yeah,
So
that's a rough one, but our
so
condolences.
yeah. So anyway.
Wish him a speedy recovery. But
There you go.
Yeah,
back to
yeah, yeah.
chastity.
Back to chastity. So I actually I saw this today and I thought I wanted to ask you guys about this. I
Okay.
know
Yeah.
we do stuff about we've addressed a couple of questions from parents on stuff in schools, and we've had a couple teachers send us questions about screens in schools. Um and I saw this story today, and then I saw a bunch of people replying to it in a way that I did not think they would. And I thought, wow. So I want to run both these perspectives by you and see
Okay.
what you guys think. So today, Senator Elise Slotkin, she's Democrat, gave like a big hour-long speech on the Democrats' ongoing policy. And one of the things she mentioned specifically was saying that they want to outlaw having students having cell phones in K-12, K through 12, which sounds really awesome. And I thought, wait a second, that's really awesome. And then a bunch of people pointed out in the comments that the only way a lot of these leftist teachers that are off curriculum teaching brainwashing have been fired and held accountable is when students who disagree have taken secret recordings
Mm.
because the administration needs proof. So what do we do about this? Because I think we all agree we don't want kids on their phones in school, but also we don't want these teachers left unsupervised with our children.
I would say you got to look at what's the worst of the evils, and I would say it's the cell phone. Honestly, just if you look at the fallout of the damage of these kids' brains from the time they're in diapers with their face glued to screens, by the time they get to 18 and can't even hold eye contact with another person. I remember when Kristen and I were looking at schools. First when we came to Arizona, one school we came to is I think it was like a K through 8. And the principal's walking us around, and she said, "Yeah, this year we're really proud. We're going book free." And I'm like, "Oh, like free books?" She's like, "No, book free, no books." I'm like, "Wait, no books, huh?" And she said, "Yeah, where everybody's got an iPad from kindergarten through 8th grade." And I'm like, "Can you bring me up to the 8th grade? I just want to kind of peek in the room." When we get up there, we look in the 8th grade classroom. Lights are down. Every kid's face is aglow with an iPad, and the teacher's sitting in the corner with her iPad, and nobody's looking at anybody. And I'm like, "Thanks. That's all I need to see." Yeah, and then we ended up going to the school where our kids go, walk in there, and I said, "Can you just bring me to the upper school? I just want to see some of the kids." And we walk in this classroom, and the kids are sitting in a circle, about 20 desks, facing each other, having some Socratic discussion about redemptive suffering in the middle-aged saints. And I'm like, "Take my money. Just take it, take it, take it." Like, and every kid we met in the school is just firm handshake, look you in the eye, big smile. I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is a truly human education. So I don't think it's necessary to equip every K through 8 kid with a cell phone or the license to have one in order to prevent, faculty members that are out of control. There's other ways to record people without cell phones. Like if you're really suspicious, give your kid a tape recorder. Hey, if that stuff's going on that you're telling me is going on, here's a little recorder. Keep it in your pocket. Press play. If you're hearing that stuff, we need evidence for it. So to me, there's ways to hold teachers accountable without having to have a cell phone in every kid's pocket. The challenge is you're going to have a mutiny on your hands when you've got the parents who are not on board with these types of things, saying, no, my kid needs a cell phone, and you guys are Nazis for not letting him have it. So, but to me, you can't let the inmates run the asylum, and to have an education where the kids are free from those distractions from the time they check into the school to the time they leave, I think that's going to only benefit education. I mean, look how U.S. is falling behind when it comes to math scores and everything else compared to other developed nations. I do not think that that's going to get better by having the kids have more time on phones while they're in school. So that's my take. So your thoughts?
I agree. I agree with that.
Awesome. Yeah, I figured it would be something along those lines, but
Yeah.
I think what you said is the best thing. Is like we just send them to school with a tape recorder. But yeah,
Yeah.
the phones, you can't be having the phones. But yeah, so awesome. Well, let's get into our audience questions. So we got a couple people in the Discord, by the way. If you guys want to ask a question, just raise your hand. We'll bring you up right after we finish this email question. This question is, how can I not be the guy that gets obsessed in a relationship and to make sure to take it slow and steady? In my past relationship, we rushed and we were always texting, calling, always wanting to be together, and getting upset when we couldn't be together. There was also excessive touching, and I want to be able to have a good, holy relationship.
Thoughts?
I think it's important you start with boundaries, one for yourself, and then have another set of boundaries for both of you that maybe you can talk about, and maybe get some hobbies or start working out or something that you can spend your time alone without that significant other, because it's important you're your own person. You're not one yet, you're not married, you shouldn't be together 24/7. I think that can cause a lot of problems. And there just needs to be a foundation of solid, good, holy boundaries, and maybe once a week go to adoration, make sure you're going to confession and not doing things that are going to put you in confession, and you know what those things are, but you know where your shortcomings are, you know your vices, you know where you fall short, you know where you're in that occasion of sin that may be for you, not for some other people. So just to be aware of where you're at, and I think that's going to help a lot.
Yeah, I like a point she made of just having some other interests, meaning like, do you have enough guy friends? Like, are you doing enough service work? Do you have enough hobbies? Because a lot of times, if we're not finding emotional fulfillment outside of the relationship, we're going to want to find all our emotional fulfillment inside the relationship. And at first, that could be intoxicating, but then it becomes suffocating over a period of time. And so I would make sure that, you're having time with your buddies. You've got the guy time. You've got your professional goals and aspirations that you're fighting to achieve. So you have that passion going on in this direction as well. That you've got goals in your interior life. I remember reading one saint who said one of the best ways to fight temptation is performing works of mercy. Go feed the poor, go clothe the naked, go do something, go think of another person. It's a great way to kind of squelch some of the raging fires of temptation. So make sure you got friendships outside of just hers, and I think that'll take a lot of the load off. Sorry, I got a little coffee.
Awesome. All right, next question. This is a fun one. I think you guys will like this one. Not fun and anyway. I regret saying fun. I am 16 years old, and me and my friends have a question we can't find an answer to anywhere. What should a Catholic girl or boy do when they are asked out by another boy, or like asked out by somebody of the same sex? How can they respond lovingly? Thanks.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, that's probably a curveball. You might not see it coming. And, well, I would say the response can be, for one, I'm flattered that, you like me and that you're drawn to me, but I'm not attracted to guys in that way. But I value your friendship and I care about you as a human being, because the person is exposing themselves to risk by sharing with you their feelings. And if you act like, oh, that is disgusting, oh, don't even talk to me, I am so creeped out by the fact that you are interested in me that way, that person, excuse me, let's say it's a guy asking a guy out. The guy asking you out is in profound need of masculine love, masculine affection, masculine affirmation, masculine affection in a healthy way. And they're seeking that out, and the world is, in many respects, teaching them to sexualize all those needs, and that those needs to be fulfilled in a sexual manner, instead of brotherhood, authentic friendship, masculine friendship, father-son love. A lot of times, that's lacking in their lives. Oftentimes, if they feel a bit effeminate, they don't feel like they identify in their own masculinity, the other to which they feel drawn is the masculine. And so there is a psychologist who once said, what is exotic becomes erotic. And what he means by that is that what is most different than us tends to be the things that we feel drawn to. But if a man feels alienated from his own masculinity, masculinity will be the thing that he feels drawn to, because there's something in the other that I don't find in myself. But if your response to him is just disgust and mockery and whatever, to me, it throws salt in that wound. And so I would try to gently, decline the offer, but then not shut the door on friendship, to be able to show him that can be loved by another man in a healthy and pure way. Thoughts?
If it's a girl, what happens with the girl?
Yeah, the question specifically was from a
Yeah.
girl. I threw in the guy thing because I figured it could apply
Well,
to
it
both.
goes
But if there's
both
anything
ways,
different for the
yeah.
girls, that would be great to know.
No, I think it goes the exact same way. That
Yeah.
I've lost count of how many girls I've met that think that if they feel drawn or attracted to another girl, I must be lesbian, I must be bi. That's what it is. It's like, well, wait a minute. maybe none of the guys in your social circle are frankly that appealing to begin with. Maybe they're perverted or awkward or whatever, but then with this girl there's just this spark, this connection. I can relate to her on an emotionally profound way. We have fun together, we have deep conversations, and I'm not finding that with any of the guys in my zip code. And so the world is telling them, okay, well then you're lesbian, that's what you are, you need to act that out. And if someone's telling you can't, then they're repressing your very identity, instead of realizing, well, wait a minute, not every attraction is a sexual attraction. That is such an important point they don't hear. And so I would try to, as I said with the guy's advice, don't mock them, don't be disgusted. Try to extend like an olive branch of friendship without the romantic element. And then hopefully they can see, yeah, you still care about them as a human being, but you don't see the relationship going in that direction. You could say the same thing if a guy's asking a girl out and I'm not interested in dating you, vice versa. Hey, I value your friendship, but I don't see this progressing. That's an act of love. That's an act of charity, to have that clarity so that they know, you're not just being some vague and indecisive answer. You're letting them know clearly, value your friendship, but I don't see it going in that direction. And if you're not willing to have that clarity, then I question how much you love the person to begin with.
Great. Anything else?
That's it on my end.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, our next question. In the dating blueprint, you say some men successfully remove their porn habit prior to marriage, but never take the time to heal from its effects, and this can cause problems later on. What does it mean to heal from a sexual sin other than to no longer be committing the sin itself?
Okay, no, it's a very good question. Analogy I've sometimes given is some guys will think, okay, I stopped looking at porn, I'm good. But that's almost like, imagine if I kind of just stabbed you with a crowbar or a spear, sword or whatever, and then I pulled it out. And it's like, hey, it's out. You're good. You're fine, right? But the sword's out here and you're over there. It's like, well, yeah, but, my intestines are on the floor. Like, there's something that needs to get done here. And so to the duration and the extent of pornography that you've looked at and the degree and the nature of that pornography, it leaves considerable scar tissue. And so I might be able to white knuckle it and say, I haven't looked at it in 6 months. But does every single woman that walked by me, do I undress her with my eyes and my imagination? I remember there's a saint who said, don't tell me that you have a pure heart if you have unpure eyes, because unpure eyes are the messengers of an unclean heart. And so when you see the woman, what is the response? Is it just she's a collection of body parts for me to use for my gratification? Or, hey, I recognize sexual beauty, but then I try to take every thought captive to Christ. And I say, God, please bless that woman. And I pray for her conversion or whatever. You're kind of transforming that temptation into an act of intercession and love. Are you moving in the direction of learning how to look at a woman rightly and with love and with reverence and purity of heart? Do you have a good spiritual director? If you feel traumatized by these memories of the pornography and it's just bugging you in your sleep and you're trying to pray, trying to work, trying to study, and it just keeps coming back, maybe spending some time with a good counselor that can help you work through this. There's one called Freedom Coaching. Guy's name is Steve Picorni. Another guy, Dr. Peter Klaponis is another really good one, Integrity Restored. It may be worth finding some mental health support in terms of continuing that healing process, because it's not like, okay, sobriety, I'm done, I haven't looked at it. They say sobriety, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's human connection. And so that it's not just about white knuckling it and having a streak of days that you haven't fallen back into it. It's about actually redeeming and healing those desires, which is a day-to-day process. Any thoughts?
And I'll always bring it back to, you're dealing with lust, and that is a straight vice. And it's a spiritual warfare, and you have to look at it as such sometimes. And I think we're like, well, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to look at it. I'll see a counselor. I'll get all this help. But spiritually, if you're not battling it as well, I think it's going to weaken you. So just know this is a spiritual battle, and to maybe have a mass offered up, or make sure you're doing your daily prayers or rosary or whatever it is that helps you to overcome this. But this is definitely a spiritual battle that I think a lot of us overlook with certain things that we're dealing in our life that we can't get rid of. And it's just kind of the elephant in the room no one wants to deal with, because sometimes people don't know how, or they're afraid of that topic.
And just be patient with yourself, not to give into discouragement. Purity to me isn't just like the destination. It's the road. and you're choosing to be on that road, and there's going to be bumps in the road, and you're going to get up, you're going to fall down. But as long as you're really tracking in the right direction, as long as you're making progress and you're fighting for love and deciding no, because I mean, lust is a very powerful desire, and in order to fight any desire, you need a greater desire. And so, what's a greater desire than lust? There's only one, and it's love. I want to love my future wife. I want to do it for the love of God. I want to do it for love of my future children. I don't want to be that 35-year-old porn addicted dad who's got to slap his laptop shut. My 5-year-old girl comes in the room. It's not the dad I want to be. And for love of her, I want to kill this habit and I want to heal. And so when you're starting to motivate it, not out of shame and guilt and repression, but out of love for your future children, for your future bride, and for your God, I think you're already well on your way. And so don't give in to discouragement. Keep fighting the good fight. I think you'll make an awesome husband and a very good father as well.
Okay. How can married couples carry their prayer lives they developed in dating into a much more hectic life of a married couple? This woman also just was talking about how her and her husband haven't prayed as much together since they got married. So, yeah.
No, sorry. I got a big cough today. My 14-year-old son blessed the entire family with all types of coughs and congestions this week. And so fighting through that whole thing right now. But speaking of children and developing an interior life in marriage, to me, the interior life is a lot like the dating life in marriage. You have to be deliberate or it just doesn't happen. And so Crystal and I, after this show, we already have a dinner reservation tonight for a date, because if we didn't make the reservation, we would just, we got to get home to the rat race and the kids, and we've got this coming up and that coming up, and it'll just suffocate you. So whether it's the romantic part of the relationship and dating, or the friendship, or just the time together, you have to be intentional in carving out that time, because it simply won't happen. And I think the same is true of the interior life. Hey, can we get in a rhythm, finding some way to go to morning mass together? Is there a way that we can, or if that's not possible and one of them has to be home, can we take turns going to morning mass? Or can we make adoration a part of our dates together? So that way it's not romance over here and spirituality over here, but hey, we're praying on our dates. So when we got in the car this afternoon to drive here to the studio, I'm like, hey, let's do a rosary together. We've got this time, let's do our 9 memoraries and consecration of the show we're going to do today. And so to me, it's about intentionality more than anything. And odds are your spouse wants that spiritual connection with you. And sometimes one of you may be slacking behind, and the other one, it's okay to call, hey, I feel like we're falling behind a little bit in this area. Can we wake up, a little bit before the kids each day and do this? Or after the kids go to bed, maybe we see a decade of the road race with the kids, and then we'll finish the other 4 decades together, after all the kids are in bed. But maybe reading, when you go to adoration, talk about what you read. And, what are you reading in adoration? Oh, I'm reading this, Ignatius Loyal. What hit you today? And so that way you're kind of talking about the graces and the words that you might have received in prayer. But yeah, it's like dating. It's got to be intentional, or otherwise it's simply not happening. Other thoughts?
In your morning prayer or evening prayer, it's something that you two just can connect, because I know what it's like when you have a house full of children, or even you're pregnant and you're exhausted and you're tired, you feel nauseous and you just don't feel well. And just to make that time for that just 10-minute morning prayer, just to connect with each other, even on a spiritual level, and then going to bed that way if you can. But I know it can be hard, it's difficult, and you have a lot of kids, and it's summer and there's a lot going on in the household. So just try to connect, because that connection with your spouse is more important than you realize. Not that load of laundry or picking up the kitchen. Those things are all important. All the house things are important. And work is important. But I think the foundation of your entire family and how it ebbs and flows and it moves is really going to come from your bond and your connection with your spouse. Because when that is off, everything is going to be off, and it's not going to be even kiltered at all. And so spiritually, emotionally, physically, all of those things need to check in quite frequently, so that way you have that strong bond, and then that way you can give that to your children.
And try to form just daily habits. Like when I would take the kids to school in the morning, we would just do a decade of the rosary, once we got on the freeway. That's the time we would start the decade each day, and it just became like clockwork, throughout the school year. Or when it's time for bed, You've got the holy water, and you're going to bless the rooms. You're going to bless the kids. You're going to do this or that. Just find different little spiritual routines that work for you and your wife and kids, whatever. And then before you know it, those things just feel like second nature. And so just try to develop some new habits. Try to tie in some date night prayers beyond grace before meals. And yeah, just be intentional and make it happen.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Next question. My sister spent part of her life in a mental hospital and is afraid no one will want her as a wife because of that. My brother says he doesn't understand why he hasn't found a girlfriend yet and thinks that if he doesn't get married in his 20s, it's too late. However, in my opinion, he's not ready for such a responsibility because he often yells at us at home, is very rude, especially when it comes to doing household chores, calls people stupid, and is usually very difficult to talk to. We've tried to recommend that he find a spiritual director or talk to somebody, but he always just ignores it. I'd like to help them somehow and be a better sister and supporter. So I'd love to hear if you have any advice. Also, these were older siblings, if I remember. Yeah, these are older siblings. She's a senior in high school, so she's probably about 18.
Yeah. Well, in regards to the guy, something I often tell single women is watch the way that the guy you like, or your boyfriend, or whatever, treats the women he currently lives with, meaning his sisters and his mom, because however he treats the women he lives with is how he will treat you. Now that you're the girlfriend or whatever, you get this extra special respect and attention, whatever. But trust me, as the years go on, he will resort to the respect he actually has for women in general. And so if he treats his mother respectfully, if he's respectful to his sisters and treats them with dignity, that's what you're going to get long-term in marriage. But if he is incapable of loving the people he lives with, then I think he will be incapable of loving a future wife and kids the way that they deserve to be loved. Now, obviously, we can grow in charity, but typically it's one of the best indicators of, I mean, that's why the family is called the school of love by the church. Because if you can love the people you live with, you can love anybody on the face of the earth. It's not going to get harder than that. I mean, love my neighbor's a piece of cake. I hardly ever see those people, but love the people under this roof, that's a whole different command altogether. And so just a note to the ladies out there, pay really close attention to the way that he loves the people who live under his own roof, because that's the best indication you could ever get as to how he will love the people who live with him 10, 20, 30 years from now. And so that's just kind of a note to the girls. In terms of the woman who had been in a mental health facility thinking just no one's going to want me, I would say, for one, pray to Saint Dymphna. She's the patron saint of people who experience mental illness. And to realize that, yeah, I went to a hospital when I was a kid because I had leukemia and I got healed. It doesn't mean that I forever have this thing. I went to a hospital because I needed help. I needed intervention, and I got the help that I needed. And so, maybe I was at a 20% capacity to be able to be fully who I am. But then after the time I spent there and the services I received, now I'm more like 85, 90% operation of my bandwidth. So a lot of healing has happened. And so a person who marries you is going to want to marry the person that you are today. They're going to see who you are today instead of forever holding yesterday over your head. If anything, I think a person should be proud of how much progress they've made to be able to face the demons like that, to be able to face the mental health challenges, and to get the help that they needed. And so any guy who judges you by your past, in my opinion, doesn't deserve to be part of your future. You got to marry someone who sees who you are today instead of someone who always rubs your nose in the past.
It sounds as though maybe within your household, you're living under that stigma. And that's why you're afraid your future husband, or I don't know, you won't be able to date somebody because this is going to be forever held over you. And I don't know what the circumstances were. I don't know why you were admitted to that mental hospital, but it was real.
This is her sister asking the question.
Her sister. Okay. It was real. And it sounds like they've gone through a lot, and you just have to have compassion, because you just don't get put in that. You just don't get put in those types of hospitals for nothing. Like, there are serious things going on, or serious things that have happened to that person that have caused something that serious to happen, and that kind of a reaction to get hospitalized. And so just to have that kind of compassion for them, and just pray for them too, because the seriousness and the level of that is pretty intense.
Yeah. And, as Crystal's indicating, if the guy is struggling with a lot of anger issues and things like that. The sister had struggled with mental health issues. You know, maybe the upbringing that they both had wasn't that harmonious. You know, maybe there were some family issues and the parenting dynamics going on, a lot of different factors at play. But I think the key is, if you're wrestling with those, whether it's anger management issues, mental health issues, you know, own your stuff. You know, go get the help. That is one of the greatest gifts you could give, not only to your future spouse and future kids, but to yourself. To be able to face what you've struggled with, to own it and to heal it, as Crystal often says, face it, own it, heal it. Instead of being like, well, I'm never going to be able to get married because, you know, women just can't see how wonderful I am. It's like, well, you know, maybe they're onto something. Maybe they notice that they see some of your impatience and maybe it scares them off a little bit. You know, maybe some healing could be needed. And so, you know, if there are mental health issues, try to face it, own it, heal it, and don't give up. You know, if the mental health issues are so severe, they could form an impediment to forming a sacramental bond. But if you've been able to leave the mental health facility, you've made a lot of progress, perhaps you're still seeing a counselor, don't throw in the towel and thinking, oh, because I struggle with depression or anxiety or this or that, I'm not a candidate for any particular vocation. It's not the case. Lots of healing can take place. Continue to listen to God and direct in whatever direction he's calling you to go in without being afraid.
You know, and I want to just speak to all the people out there that maybe have struggled with any mental health or anger issues or have brought your own baggage or wounds to the table, and you have those and you've struggled with them for a really long time, but you've made a lot of progress. Don't allow yourself to forget the progress that you have made, the demons that you have overcome in your life, because sometimes there are those people in your life that want to pull you back and want to keep you there because it's easier for them however they're living, and it's almost an excuse of like, well, that's how you are and this is what you did and that's all you're ever going to be and that's why I do this, and that's not the truth and that's not the case. And so just to know you've made a lot of progress, and don't let the devil take that away from you with maybe that you have fallen or you have gotten angry or had an episode or whatever it is you're going through. Just get back up. God's grace is there. And I think we forget that sometimes, or we're so hard on ourselves that if we made past mistakes, we think, oh, I've gone too far. God doesn't want me, or he can't heal me, or this is going to last forever. No, it's not. That is a lie from the pit of hell, because everything has its season, but it's something that you're going to have to show up to your own fight for. And God is there waiting for you. His grace is there. But just don't give up. Your pain is real. Your suffering is real. What you've experienced in your life, yes, that is real. But that doesn't mean you have to stay on pause in that moment in your life, but to just keep moving forward, and that you're stronger than you think you are. And God is just waiting for you to show up and to fight with him.
Great, guys. We have a call here. I'm going to invite him up on stage.
Great.
It's Zlatan's Army. So you're on stage now. You can talk. Yeah, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, sorry about that. Zlatan is a soccer player, so I made this when I was like 13 or something. Sorry.
That's okay.
You're fine.
What I mainly wanted to ask was concerning the hello. Sorry, I'm at work. It was mainly concerning sexual acts like oral sex and anal sex and all these things, because my wife, who I just got engaged with 2 weeks ago, wants to know, like, what is the church's stance and all these things, because I'm very bad theologian. I'm currently in Franciscan University, but I want to be able to provide these things for her. And I was hoping you guys could help me out with this question. What does the church teach about anal and oral and all these other things? Because a lot of her friends, she is from India, so she doesn't have a lot of good teachings over there, and she comes from a Protestant denomination. So if you could please help me out with that. Love your show. You guys are awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
you.
It was funny when I heard the name, that soccer player. I don't know if you know, but when he first came to play in Los Angeles, LeBron James sent him one of his jerseys, LeBron James jersey, to Zlatan to kind of welcome him to Los Angeles. Zlatan autographed the jersey and sent it back to LeBron. So he's kind of quite a personality there on that guy. So, and I think he took out a full-page ad in the LA newspaper, and he just put "You're welcome" when he showed up. So got a little kind of ego on that guy, but to me, that's just darn funny. But anyway, back to the very serious question. The simplest way to answer the question, it's obviously has to be treated in a very delicate way, is that the seed always belongs in the garden. And that to say that the climax of the sexual act always needs to end in the way that God designed for children to be created. And so babies and bonding, these things should not be separated. And so the Catholic Church has never said that oral affections cannot be used leading up to an act of climax, which should take place in the natural place in the woman's reproductive system, because that's what that's designed for. Now, in terms of anal intercourse, it's simply not healthy. It's physiologically unhealthy. So to me, that one is intrinsically disordered, and I can't see in the church, has not created a laundry list of yes, no, maybe yes, absolutely not, no, of every potential, sexual act that could be done. Rather, what the church does is gives us a principle that the sexual act should always climax in the natural way and end in that way, and that also there should be a culture of reverence towards each other's bodies, and also a reverence towards each other's pasts and sensitivities. Because if a man gets married thinking, well, hey, all bets are off, abstinence until marriage, and now I can do all these things that I saw on pornography or whatever growing up, because I'm married and everything's just green light. It's like, wait a minute, you're married to a human being, okay? You're not married to a laptop screen, all right? You're not married to all these, fetishes and disorders and stuff that you've been exposed to from the time you're in 7th grade, and now is your chance to have an outlet in a real human being. Marriage is not the fulfillment of porn, okay? Porn is the distortion of human love. And any expression of love between a husband and a wife in the bedroom should be an expression of Christ's love for his church. And people think, oh, now you're bringing like church into the bedroom and spirituality. And no. Spirituality should be over here. Sexuality should be over here. Bringing them together is just creepy and weird. No. I mean, a couple should be able to pray before making love. To realize that God is the author of love. God is the one who created this gift. And it doesn't mean they have to like pray grace before meals like every single time and like, oh, thank you, Lord. He doesn't have to come into every act, doesn't have to be full of intercession and prayer and this and that, but just to know that God is the one who gave you this gift of a spouse. God is the one who gave you this gift of your sexuality. And so we should use it in a way that glorifies him. And so you want to be very mindful, because certain acts, one spouse might not feel comfortable with that, and that really makes me feel gross or used or whatever. And I think it's important that the other spouse be reverent and respectful towards that, instead of being, well, like, no, I'm married, I can get whatever I want from you. That's going to create a lot of sexual frigidity in the marriage, a lot of resentment, and the woman probably not, frankly, feeling very safe. And so this is why John Paul II spoke so often in his book, Love and Responsibility, about the man in particular being able to have the virtue of tenderness towards the woman. And he didn't mean by that just affection and just, oh, but I got my hands all over, I'm very affectionate. No, I'm very tender. No. He's talking about seeing into the other person, anticipating their needs, their fears, their expectations, their hopes, their desires. And if a man cannot see those things and it's all about him in the bedroom, that's going to fizzle pretty fast. It's going to create a lot of frigidity, and it won't create intimacy, but a barrier to intimacy. And so to be specific, in terms of oral affections leading to actual intercourse, the church has not said that they cannot express affection in that way should they both, wish to, but it cannot end in that way. It needs to end in an act of climax. The seed of the man always belongs only in the garden. So any other thoughts in terms of that?
And just really sit down and talk about both your comfort level, and just make sure you know where she's at, especially before marriage. These are honestly just good conversations to have, so you're both not just kind of shocked after you're married, but financially, and just these are things that you need to discuss, because after marriage and then you bring these things up and it freaks her out, I think that's going to be a little overwhelming. But it also is on just her comfort level and where she's at and just her knowledge. And it's great that you're getting this knowledge and teaching her, because she is Protestant, and where we're at as Catholics and what you believe. And the more knowledge you can give her and the more knowledgeable you seem is great.
Yeah, and just be...
Yeah,
what's that?
I'm sorry to interrupt. If
Yep.
No,
I
you're
could
fine.
also get some, I don't want to abuse. I hope Josiah, who has an awesome gaming channel, is cool with it. I was just curious, like, about condoms and all these other things. Is like, Is there ever an appropriate means? It's always as far as I'm concerned, it's always a no, right? I love the Catholic faith, and
With
go to our,
condoms?
for our network. Yeah,
Was that?
so it's like contraception as a
Yeah,
whole.
contraception.
Yeah.
So I specifically like that when we speak, I tell her like, we can't do that, and she goes, but I want to have, I want to be intimate without having kids because I only want a certain amount. And for me, like I come from a Hispanic background, so it's like for me, 12 kids is,
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
If you guys could enlighten me a little bit about like having that conversation or like where to approach it or where I'm coming from,
You were
Yeah.
asking for citations too, Zlatan, right, in the chat?
what
You were asking for specific citations in the chat too?
books and anything else like I
Yeah,
could read
okay.
to like
Oh, that's good.
better be informed of these things or
Yeah.
anything that anybody puts in there I'll read because
Yeah.
I love reading.
Two books that I would recommend. One would be Christopher West wrote a book called Good News About Sex and Marriage. It's kind of a Q&A book based upon his pastoral experience as the director of marriage and family for the Archdiocese of Denver. So Good News About Sex and Marriage is going to do a good job talking about these issues. Another one, I wrote a book called Pure Intimacy. It's an explanation of the church's teachings on natural family planning and why that is the route to go rather than contraception. So, if your fiance brings up to you like, well, I want to be able to be close to you without having kids every single time, I think first you need to affirm, hey, I can totally understand that. I could see how you could feel overwhelmed and almost afraid that anytime we're intimate, we're going to end up, pregnant, and you don't know psychologically or financially how you're going to be able to handle that or physically. I totally get that. And so you want to explain to her, well, the nice thing is that God has already built into our bodies seasons of infertility and fertility every single month. We don't need to artificially block fertility and create an artificial state of infertility at that time. All we have to do, instead of suppressing the woman's body with chemicals and barriers to conform to our desires, what we can do,
I don't want to do that.
yeah, we can do is we can actually conform our desires to the way that our wives' bodies have already perfectly been created. And with natural family planning, the church is not saying that you cannot responsibly space out pregnancy. The church teaches, no. It's up to the spouses to prayerfully discern, is now a time to bring another life into this world and be open to that, or is now a time to space out our next pregnancy and prayerfully discern that. The church will never tell you, you got to have 5, you got to have 8, you got to have 3.
Yeah.
No, God will tell you that, but the church won't.
Yes, he will.
And so what natural family planning does is leaves a little bit of room for the Holy Spirit, who's the Lord and the giver of life, but in the sense that like you're not contracepting. To contracept is to binge, so to speak, on the sexual pleasure and then purge out the life-giving effect. And it's some people have compared it almost to like an eating disorder where I'm binging on food and then I'm purging it out because I want to stay slim, as opposed to practicing some temperance and dieting from fatty foods and maintaining a slim figure through the virtue of temperance instead of gluttony. And one of the beauties of NFP is you don't have to worry about the side effects of the hormonal contraception, the fact that every hormonal contraception also acts as an abortifacient, whether it's the birth control pill or Depo or you name it, there is an abortifacient element to that. And many women don't realize that. You don't have to worry about the increased risk of breast cancer that you would get with the birth control pill. You don't have to worry about that either. And so no woman, in my opinion, wants to contracept. They might want to be intimate without having a baby, but they never have wanted to be at war with their own bodies in order to accomplish that. And so natural family planning helps you to work in harmony with your body so that by charting together as a couple, you can actually have in your hands your wife's own reproductive health chart so you can see, wait a minute, I think your thyroid is off. Maybe we need to look at this. And like, sure enough, she had PCOS and this is what's causing that. Like it's healthy to use natural family planning. I did a podcast, I don't know, a year back with some college girls that have started these fertility awareness clubs on their college campuses. And all these like sorority girls are joining and all this stuff, learning their cycles. And it's not because they're using it for some contraceptive purpose. It's because it's really healthy just to know how your body works, psychologically, physiologically. It's just good. And so to me, when I do talks on NFP for engaged couples, I kind of explain like, look, this is physically healthiest for the woman. And if any good guy worth his salt be like, okay, this is physically and spiritually better for her than that, then we're doing this. Yeah, it might mean a little extra sacrifice on my part, a little bit more abstinence each month, but if it's good for her, where do we take the class? Like, period. If I know something's good for my fiance and I'm unwilling to do it, what business do I have marrying that person to begin with? And so I think your job is just trying to gently show her why NFP is physically better, and it can still achieve the end that she's wanting, to be able to be intimate with a spouse without expecting to get pregnant every single time. You just have to time your intimacy. And studies have shown couples use NFP are physically intimate as often as those who don't use NFP. They just time it differently. And so in the end, they end up having a lot more intimacy because they have a divorce rate in the ballpark of 4%. So the church is onto something here. So check out Good News About Sex and Marriage by Christopher West, my little booklet, Pure Intimacy, which you could find at chastity.com. And then Crystalina, how about some woman's perspective on that?
Well, first of all, I want to commend you for your courage on your questions, because a lot of guys want to know, and they have these same questions, but they're not, I don't know, they didn't have the same courage to just ask.
It's for my wife's health. Yeah, of course.
Exactly. So I want to commend you for that. First of all. Second of all, also I want to commend you for just wanting to become knowledgeable in the areas that you don't know. And instead of just going with the ways of the world and using a condom and just doing what you feel like doing, you're seeking out God's truth in these matters and trying to plant that good foundation. So I think that's wonderful. In regards to NFP, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. We've had 11 children. We have 3 babies in heaven. We have 8 children now. And no matter what, at the end of the day, you're opening the well springs of life every time you are intimate with your spouse. I don't care if green day, blue day, red day, whatever day, you're giving God that yes. And so just be open to that. But if you do end up pregnant, God will take care of you. God knew you could handle that child, and he's not going to leave his fingerprint on you without leaving also the grace in your marriage and in the woman to manage and take care of that child. No matter what is going on, it's there. So not to get discouraged either. But just stay very prayerful in all of this. And you do have some challenges. The fact that you're both not Catholic, marriage is very difficult, but at the same time, it seems like you want to do her right and give her the right information and lead her in the right direction, and also guide yourself in the right direction in regards to your own faith and not kind of getting sucked into her own whims, which is great. I know that sounds terrible, but it's true. And just stand firm in your faith and pray for her, and God's grace is with you. You can just already tell.
And if she thinks,
told her that I respectfully told her I'd rather cut off my wiener than leave the Catholic Church. So there's no way.
She knows where you stand.
Serious business.
Yeah, hopefully,
okay?
hopefully it won't be necessary.
It won't.
Yeah, but but if she's not buying the religious stuff, just to let you know, you said she's from India, right?
Yes.
Okay. British Medical Journal. If you were to Google British Medical Journal, fertility awareness methods, natural family planning, they have a study that came out several years back where they tested NFP on more than 19,000 poor women in India and, quote, had a pregnancy rate, quote, approaching 0. And so this was a developing part of the nation. The women were not well educated. What's that?
Do you have a link?
Can you get a link to that in the...
Yeah, I mean, you could search for it at chastity.com. We have it at chastity.com. Oh. It's in the book, Pure Intimacy. But, I don't have the computer in front of me. But British Medical Journal, if you were to even put the quotes, approaching 0 fertility awareness methods, Google that, it should pop up. But yeah, more than 19,000 women had a pregnancy rate approaching 0 by learning natural family planning. I'll give you a little clue as to who is behind that push. It was a little little sister who wore a lot of white habits with little blue stripes along the edge. Mother Teresa was behind that push for NFP, but they studied at the British Medical Journal and said, yeah, this legit works for planning families. Contraception is not necessary.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling in.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Good luck with it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Great call. Great call. Also, I will take this opportunity to tell everyone, if you want to call in, Discord link's in the description. So you do that, you raise your hand, you can call in, have a conversation with Jason and Crystalina, just like Zlatan's army.
Woke me up. Let me just be honest. Okay, I've been feeling super.
I know. I was trying to
right now, but that just woke me up. Josiah. Okay.
Yeah.
I was stalling that out because I was like, "There's got to be like a joke here," but more than anything,
that's proof. This is live.
Straight up live.
This is live. I hope that guy gets never mind.
Alrighty then.
That's what happens when Josiah's screening the calls.
Okay, hold on. What? How was I? This is like 5 minutes into the call. You think I didn't? I screened the beginning of the call.
You're awesome, Josiah. That was great.
Curveballs are fun to hit.
Woke me up. Hey,
curveballs are fun to hit.
You're doing great.
All right. Well, here we had a call. I think it was last week. It was 2 weeks ago.
The accordion guy?
No, not the accordion guy. We do love him though. But he's banned. We had a call a couple weeks ago about a guy who was looking to get his marriage convalidated, and you guys gave him some really great advice on how to explain that to his wife.
Uh-huh.
But the same individual sent us another email. And I think, so this is a really tough situation, but I think this is a great question to tackle just because I think there may be a little misunderstanding. So he had a priest come out to his house. He's disabled, so he can't drive. But he had a priest come out to his house and talk to him. He was hoping to receive the sacrament of reconciliation. And the priest informed him that because his marriage is not convalidated and he is not living as sister and brother with his spouse, he's not married in the church, that he can't receive the sacrament of reconciliation because the relationship is not, it's not a sacramental marriage.
Yep.
And so his email seemed to think that was the incorrect thing. I'll leave that to you guys on whether or not that's the correct thing, but if you guys could just address that situation.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a tough one, obviously. We have to keep in mind when our Lord gave the apostles the power to forgive sins, he also gave the apostles the power to retain sins. Whoever sins you forgive are forgiven, whoever sins you retain are retained. Now, obviously, the retention of sins is not something you hear a lot about, but the church does have the authority to do that if you are not repentant of your particular sin. Now, you don't need to have perfect repentance, like in the sense that perfect in the degree of like, I repent of this fully because I have this perfect love of God and I know the depths of the sorrow that I've caused to the heart of God, because like a lot of times we think we have to have this absolute perfect contrition or God won't forgive us. That's the beauty of the sacrament of reconciliation. It's like, look, I know I did something wrong. I'm sorry. I know I'm still wrestling with some affection to the sin, but I'm trying to get better at it. The grace of the sacrament covers that. You don't have to have perfect contrition in the sense of the degree of perfect compunction in your sin. That being said, if the priest knows, I'm gonna live with my girlfriend and I'd like to go to confession, and then as soon as it's over, I'm just gonna go back and live with my girlfriend and sleep with her again. It's like, well, wait a minute, like, you're not sorry. Like, what are you doing here? Why are you asking for forgiveness for something you intentionally plan on going back to? Now, he could go back to living with this person if they were to live as brother and sister. And he understands the severity. I can't sleep with a woman who's not my wife. Like, yeah, we were married by a justice of a peace or this or that, but sacramentally it was outside of the church, and so we do not have a valid sacramental marriage. We have a legally licit marriage, but one that's not sacramental. And so the church would say, yes, you are called to live as brother and sister. And I think if he were to say to the priest, like, I really want to get this convalidated, and I am intent, and I've been clear with my wife that we need to live as brother and sister until we can get this marriage blessed, I think the priest would give him the sacrament of reconciliation. I think that would have taken place. Perhaps in the discussion it became clear to the priest that the gentleman had no intention of going to live that type of lifestyle and was going to return back to sexual intimacy with the woman who's sacramentally not his wife, that's probably why the withholding took place. Not simply because they haven't had their marriage convalidated yet, but because the sexual behavior was likely to return to what it was with no real resolution of the will to cut that off. So I'm guessing that's probably why that took place. Why
Yeah,
it was
there's
retained.
a reason. There seems like there's a reason there. A priest just shouldn't do that, or else he's abusing his power as a priest, it seems to me. But
Yeah.
the person may not be sorry. But if we're being honest right now, it all goes back to intentions. Like, what are your intentions and why you do something? Because to the world, you can look like a saint, but your intentions are to get the attention of looking like a saint, but not really to please God. I mean, that's disordered. So you really have to look at when you're doing something, if it's in ministry, if it's in your marriage, whatever it is, that you are in alignment with God's will, and so are your intentions. Because you may be fooling the people in front of you, but you can't fool God. You never will fool God. So just to keep that in mind and just ask for purity of intentions when you're executing something. And God will help you with that. Trust me, he always does.
Yeah.
Every time I pray that, you just stay right ordered. But it's just a matter of asking for that grace, asking for that prayer, but always just look at your intentions of why you're doing something.
Yeah. And it's very hard because, I mean, I know so many priests. It's very hard to tell someone no in confession, that I retain your sins and I will not give you absolution. It gives priests such joy to hear a truly repentant confession and just say, no, that abortion that you went through or this that you went through, everything is forgiven. God has, washed away your sins. And just to see the joy of someone leaving confession, just a brand new creation, that brings the priest so much fulfillment and joy. And to be able to actually say to somebody, no, I cannot absolve you, is really hard on the priest. It's very difficult because they have the heart of a father. But what I would say to you is allow yourself to be fathered by this priest. And what I mean by that is that when a dad has to say, no, this is gonna hurt, but I can't give this to you. It pains the father's heart, but because he loves you enough to say no to you, that's a real father. If you have a dad that cannot say no to you, I just think he loves himself too much. You think of the great saints like Padre Pio. A guy came to Padre Pio. Now, Padre Pio could just read your soul. This guy came to Padre Pio, left his wife, was living with another woman, sleeping with this other woman, with his mistress, and went to confession just to be seen going to confession to Padre Pio. And he walks in the confession. Padre Pio looks at him and says, "Get out of here, you disgusting pig." That's literally all he said to the guy. And the guy's like, well, someone woke up on the wrong side of the bed and just walked out of the confessional. There's another guy. I mean, who was it? St. John Vianney saw a guy and it was came by the church with his hunting dog and he had left the church. And John Vianney looked at the guy, looked at the dog and said, "It is a pity that your soul is not as beautiful as your dog."
Wow.
And the guy was like,
Can you imagine being that guy?
Oh.
I mean, you don't want to be that guy.
oh, but it's what he needed. He needed a 2x4. John Vianney gave it to him. And he followed him into confession, gave a sincere confession, and became a Catholic monk. Sometimes we need a slap upside the head more than we need a hug.
Yeah.
And so if the priest is saying, no, I can't do this to you, it's because he wants to shock you, to wake you up to the reality of, like, we're living in sin and we can't do this anymore. And God willing, your wife will understand that you just want to have this marriage blessed. And it doesn't mean that she needs to become Catholic. It doesn't mean that she needs to agree with everything the church teaches in every paragraph of the catechism, but that she's willing to have the church bless this and ask God's blessing upon it. And if she's unwilling to do that, you must choose to live as Christ. Come pick up your cross and follow me. And sometimes the step backwards is the step forward that God is calling you to take. But just trust in him. And every time your heart feels anxious, just, Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust you. In the midst of that fog, just keep going forward with Jesus. And he'll lead you to places you cannot ever begin to believe if you just take one step at a time. But don't get paralyzed. Well, I can't see how this is ever going to work out, so I'm just going to freeze. No, if you know what God's telling you to do, just do it.
Yeah, don't freeze in your sin.
Mm-hmm. No, like Crystal always says, the most powerful thing you can do in the world is the will of God. And so if you know what that will is, do good and avoid evil, he'll make the next step clear. But allow yourself to be fathered by this priest, because I think he loved you in being able to give you a firm no.
And this brings up another topic beside that question, is the abuse of the sacrament of confession. Because I went through a time in my life, and there are some of you out there that think, well, Father will be there on Saturday morning, so it doesn't matter what I do Friday night. So I'm just going to do this, and I'll just go to confession, and then I'll still be able to receive communion Sunday. No problem. And that's not there for the convenience of you sinning and having a good time and then going and thinking you're right with God, because that is more of a slapping it in his face to do something like that. And I think it's incredibly disrespectful. And mind you, hey, I did that. I did do that when I was living that crazy party life before my conversion, and it was gross. And I'm just telling you right now, don't abuse the sacrament of confession. It is real. Your sins are real, but also repentance. It needs to be real, and it can't just be for show. And again, that goes back to your intentions and why you're doing something, because I needed to go into that confession so my mom would see me go to confession. And also there was a part of me though, and spiritually, where I still was spiritually wasn't fully dead. I still was alive. Like, I can't go up there without going to confession. I knew better, and a lot of you know better, but I still was abusing the sacrament of confession by partying and then going the next day and thinking, oh, it'll be fine, I can just go to confession, no big deal. You know, that's an abuse of the sacrament. So just FYI, want to put that out there.
And I remember it was Saint Mary of Egypt. This was a woman who would seduce Christian pilgrims on their way to the Holy Land. Not doing it for money, just for the sake of just
Like,
seducing
on
them.
their way, almost like confession,
Oh, yeah.
but it was the Holy Land. I mean, this is sick stuff.
You know, and so she's seducing them, fornicating with them on the way of their pilgrimages, and then they all get to the Holy Sepulchre, and she gets there, and boom, she physically can't get in. There's like a force field that's like,
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, and she hit that thing, and she couldn't step foot in the Holy Sepulchre, and it was the beginning of the conversion of God saying, "This is a holy place. Get your heart right." And she did, and she's a canonized saint in the Catholic Church. There's even a saint, I forget her name. I think she's in the Eastern Church. She became a nun, and then she fell hard, and she had an affair, and she slept with, I think it was a monk or something. Like, it was bad. And so she despaired after that, and she's like, that's it. And she's a young sister who committed that sin, and forget it. And then she left, and she went to a brothel, and she became a prostitute. As a former religious sister, became a prostitute. Now, her uncle was still a monk living the religious life, and he searched her out, and he found where she was at, whether in Alexandria or wherever, or Corinth, and he found where she was at, and he went to the brothel, and he reminded her, you are still a bride of Christ, and he converted her, and she went back to the religious life, took on the habit again, lived a life of penance and prayer, and became a canonized saint. And so don't think that whatever circumstance that you've gotten yourself into, that sainthood is, beyond that ridge and I can never get there. No, that's what the devil wants you to think. No, you're still called to be a canonized saint, regardless of the situation that you find yourself in. God can get you out of that mess, but he needs you to just say yes and be obedient to the little things, and then he'll take care of the big obstacles.
And you know, something you just said, confession, when you kind of step across that threshold of confession, that is a holy place in there. That is where God redeems you. He forgives you. It's holy in there, but God wants you to be holy. He wants you to bring your filth and your brokenness and your sin and your wounds into that holy place to heal you. And not that you're too far or just too bad or there's some sin too big. No, he's calling you into that holy place to heal you. So don't be afraid of it, but don't abuse it. Okay? Don't abuse it. So anyway.
And keep inviting that priest over to the house. If you're physically unable to make it to a parish,
Good for you, though.
just keep inviting him over, at least for spiritual direction, just for some counsel, for some fellowship. That's an act of your will to say, if I can't get there, will you come to me? And I think he will continue to. So thanks to, for your good intention, but just pray for the grace to do whatever it is God wants you to do. And as Our Lady said, do whatever he tells you.
Great stuff, guys. Well, it's 10 o'clock. We can do a couple more if you guys want, or we can call it there.
What time's our dinner reservation?
7:30.
7:30. We'll take one more question.
One more question.
Then it's date night, people.
Yeah, we got date night.
Date night. Let's
Kids will probably
go.
burn the house down.
Oh
It's
my
too late.
Where are you going to eat? No, that's not the question.
A
I do wanna know
steakhouse.
though. Are
Someone
you going to
recommended-
to the steakhouse? Oh no, different
No,
one.
it's
No, just we've never been there before. Someone recommended it to her last night.
what is the name? The name
Okay,
is
awesome.
Yeah. So
Anyway. Da-da-da-da. All right. I have a good friendship with an attractive, intelligent woman who I think we would have a really powerful relationship with
wait,
on
can you back
rational
up
ground.
again? I missed the beginning. It
Sorry.
sounded like an auction.
Hey, going once,
Josiah.
going twice. I have a good friendship with an attractive, intelligent woman with whom I think I could have a really powerful relationship on rational grounds. It is 100% a checklist win. However, we seem to lack in the chemistry department. We don't laugh at the same stuff, and we do and say things that just don't reach the other person. I don't feel like I'm being overly scrupulous, as there are female friends in my life with whom I do have an almost immediate understanding and connection, even if not romantic. Is this a deal breaker? I wonder if we can cultivate this, but I have doubts. Would what could I think he means what could I do to make this work, or is it a losing game?
I would try to cultivate it. Try to see if something can. But if you're trying to cultivate, you're trying, and just it just seems like off. Like you're just on different pages, you different sense of humor, different interests, different whatever, and it's just not clicking. Then just accept the reality of it. Of like, hey, I've got an attractive, awesome friend, and it doesn't mean that she needs to be my future wife. And then not put too much pressure on her to make something happen. But yeah, I'd give it a shot, give it a try. I'd say for sure if you've already got 80% of the raw material and you just need that extra 20%, great. But if that 20% is missing and you guys just really aren't connecting, it's going to be a long lifetime with someone, because marriage is kind of a lot about connection. And if you're not connecting on a very natural way, I mean, that's, Crystal and I have had our bumps in the road at difficult times in marriage, for sure. There's been major, major challenges and we pressed through that. But I think from the beginning, the chemistry of the fun, of the laughing, like it was just there. Like we never had to try at it. It was, I mean, we've had to try plenty other stuff.
Before you're married, I mean, after marriage, I think it's just going to be like dragging each other along. I mean, honestly, it shouldn't be hard. It really should not be hard. Before marriage, marriage brings a lot of challenges. I mean, things that you think would never touch your marriage really can bulldoze you, and you think, I thought that never happened, or I thought these things, you just never know what marriage is going to bring. You never know what your children are going to bring when you have them, if it's sicknesses, if it's you lose a child, you just never know. There's so many things that can happen. Life just happens, right? But you want to be on the same page with your spouse. You want to have that partner, that it's you and them against the world, and you have that good solid foundation of friendship, spiritually, emotionally, just you're kind of there. And if you don't and you have to force it, I don't think that's good. I'm sorry, I just don't. I'm going to be honest about that. You really need to have that. And honestly, maybe you are showing her some romantic inclinations and she's pulling away. Just stop and just be her friend. I know that may be hard, but at the same time, you don't want to lose the friendship either. And don't take it to heart. She's just not the one for you then. And that's okay, because if you are supposed to get married, that one will come. But it's good that you learn to be friends with women. And girls do it, guys do it too. It's just sometimes they don't know how to just be friends with women without making it romantic, because they are lonely. They do long for that other person. But at the same time, you got to just chill out sometimes and just know God's in charge, and not every person that you're friends with needs to end up romantic. So,
Awesome.
Good.
Master,
Well,
we're going to Master Coast.
Yeah.
That's our last question for the night, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Yay.
Email us live@chastity.com. We'll answer your questions.
And then
Um,
And then also next week is we're coming out with the interview I just did with Jackie and Bobby Angel about their new book on Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati. So I think, is that interview coming out next week, Josiah?
yes, we are shooting for Monday on that.
Okay.
So
Monday for that one.
Yeah.
But like Josiah said, please email your questions at live@chastity.com or submit them on the Discord server. Comments to these videos we're checking out, use as future questions, or most importantly, if you become a patron on patreon.com/Jason Everett, that helps support this entire program, and any of those questions go to the top of the list every single episode. So real big thank you. I know a lot of you guys watching this are patrons. Your support is huge to us. It's a great gift. And then also, and lastly, swing over to chastity.com if you've got any questions on the stuff that we've covered today. All the resources, all the first primary sources of any scientific stuff we mentioned, all that stuff is categorized in the Q&A section at chastity.com. And you can also go to jp2trails.com if you want to sign up to come with us to Italy. July 27th is when we're heading out. There are still 5 rooms left. We've got 2 buses full of young adults, families, married couples. It's going to be an unbelievable blast. Come with us to Italy, jp2trails.com, or if you want late September, come with us to France, to Paris, Lisieux, Mont-Saint-Michel, and the Selems Monastery. So jp2trails.com, chastity.com, and we will see you guys next week. God bless.
Bye.
Comment, like, and subscribe, and click share.
Please do.